Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Nedarim Daf Ayin number 70. It's a fast day, so you have to forgive me if I'm not as exciting and as amazing as usual because I didn't have my coffee, so it's not as easy. I'm thankful I'm giving this share in the morning. Let's start. Samach Tam Beis. The third to last line, Bai Rabba Kim Lichi Hayom Mahu. Right? We know that the father or the husband has the right to be made for a nether. He says, I'm a kaimit today. Mahu. Right? The fact that he went out and said, instead of saying, I'm Mekayim the nether, I'm affirming the nether, he said, I'm affirming it for one day, or for the rest of the day. We'll talk about that in Iyun with Ben Sion. It's like he's saying, basically, just wait till tomorrow. I'm being made for it tomorrow. Dilma, that's what he's implying. Dilma, halo amarlar. Maybe he didn't actually say that. He just said, Kim licha yom, and I didn't say I'm being made for it tomorrow. Now, if you're wondering that really you can't be made for another after 24 hours, that's a problem that the Rishonim deal with over here. The art scroll brings in the footnotes. The main answer is because since he's stipulating, right, I'm a kaimah today, which maybe implies I'm made for it tomorrow. So therefore, you have the ability to extend it 24 hours. I don't think that's the right shot. And I have a proof for the Mishnah at the beginning of Daf Samech, where we'll talk about that. I have an alternative shot. That's the main shot that the art scroll gives. So the Gemara continues on Ayam and Aleph. Maybe he'll say no. He said Kim Lichayom, but he didn't say I'm made for it tomorrow, so it doesn't count. That doesn't constitute for it tomorrow. Amar la mufer lichi lamachar. Let's say I'm made for it tomorrow. Mao. You know lamachar lamati made for hakem nidre. By saying I'm made for it tomorrow, it implies what? That I'm mekayim it now. Once you're mekayim the neder, you can't go back and be made for the neder. You have to be shoal al kamasa, like we learned before, and then be made for the neder. Because he didn't specify and say I'm mekayim today. It's basically saying that I'm not mekayim today. I'm just waiting until tomorrow morning, let's say, to be made for the nether. And if you'll say what? That since he's mekayim today, right, so tomorrow the neder is mekuyim. Amar lakim lichi shah. What if he says I'm mekayim the neder for an hour, right, or for a minute? Right, we're talking about saying I'm mekayim for a day. It's mekayim for a day, right? That's the normal amount of time for neder, right? You have 24 hours, or the day period of a day to be made for the neder. He says, what about an hour? He's mekayim for an hour. Do we assume that he meant to say I'm made for it after the hour? He didn't actually say he's being made for it. If he'll say that he has to specify and say I'm being made for it after an hour, what if he says specifically I'm being made for the neder after an hour? Since he says he's being made for it for an hour, so he's mekayim it now, and once you're mekayim it, you have to be shoal al kama. You have to matir the kama, the affirmation before you go and be made for the neder. Dilma came on the kula yoma bar hakama bar afarahu. Since he has an entire day to be made for mekayim the neder, gamar mufer lichi lachar shah mahani. Right, when he says I'm being made for it after an hour, so basically he's not saying I'm being mekayim it for this first hour. He's just telling you my plan's already made for it an hour. Tashma, let's try to give an answer to one or some of these questions. Hareini Nazira, if a woman says she's a Nazir. V'shalom Baila, her husband hears her. Amar Vani, now the husband, besides having the ability to rid his wife or his daughter of a neder, he also has the same power by a Nazirus. So Nazirus is a type of a neder. So her husband heard her and he said, Ani, and me. En yachal lahafer. So the Brisa says he can't be made for the neder. Valmai, why can't he be made for the neder? Nema vani the amar hu al nafshe, they have a nazir. Maybe vani just means I also want to be a nazir like you. Aval hareini nazira dila d'sha'achas kaim al achar shah ibai lefer. Right? By saying I am a nazir, so he's basically saying I'm not going to be mefer to annul, to block your nazirus. I'm going to take nazirus upon myself. But it's like saying I will do it after an hour. Ibai lefer. Amai nochal hafer. Why can't he be mefer? La mishum the kevan the kimo. Once he's mekayim it for, he says, I'm a nazir now, meaning I'm not interested in being made for your nazirus. I'm taking nazirus upon myself. I'm joining myself to your nazirus, which is in effect really confirming or affirming her nazirus, right? But basically, you have the opportunity after an hour to be made for. So what must be? If you say I'm made for after an hour, it's like you're mekayim it, and once you're mekayim, you can't be made for. Lo kasavar kol v'ani kiman amar kim lichi la'olam dami. No. The Bryce already understood, but Vani doesn't mean that I'm also becoming a Nazir. Vani is just another way of saying, I am Mekayim this Nazirus. I am joining to you in your acceptance of this Nazirus. I affirm this Nazirus that you took upon yourself, and therefore it's a Kiyum La'olam, which the Gemara assumes if you're Mekayim it forever, that is a Kiyum. If you want to be made for it afterwards, then you definitely have to be Shoel on your Hakama. The Mishnah is a ball, Nisrokna, Mesa Avla, Nisrokna Shus Labal. The father dies, so as we learned before in the Brisa on Samachet and Samachet, if the father dies, meaning she takes a neder when she's engaged, right? And whether the husband hears about it or doesn't hear about it, whether the father hears about it or doesn't hear about it, the father dies, the husband can't be made for the neder himself. He always has to be made for B'shutfus. Meis habal. However, if the husband was the one who died, the fiance is the one who died, then the rishus goes to the father. Whether we'll see in the Gemara whether he heard it or not, didn't hear it, the baal, the father gets to do it because he had a chazaka before she got engaged. The father had the rishus, so now he joins with the husband. The husband dies. It goes back to what I was before. The Gemara will derive from the psukim how we know this. In the aforementioned way, we see that the power of Afaras Nedarim for the father is stronger than the husband. But Davar Acher and something else, in another way, the husband has stronger power than the father. Shabal Mefer of a beggar. The husband can make for Nedarim of a woman who's in Bagros, right? She's 12 years and 6 months. And she has Simon. Avena made for a beggar. The father, we know that the father loses Rishus over his daughter once she becomes a Bulgaris. Right? Only as a Nara or a Ktani can be made for an Nadarim. Once she becomes a Bulgaris, even if she doesn't get married, the father can't be made for an Nadarim. The Gemara says, "My time. What's the reason of the initial ruling in our Mishnah? Right? That Nisrokna, if Mesa Baal Nisrokna Shuslav. I'm sorry. Mesa Al Nisrokna Shuslav. The father dies. The husband doesn't get to be made for exclusively as the fiance. My time. And I'm a krab in Oreb Savia. At the summation, the end of the Parsha and Matos, it adds B'noreh Be'Savia to tell you that in Narus, she's primarily in the house of her father, meaning because before she got married, she was always in the house of her father. Only when she gets engaged, he joins in. But there, for instance, she has the chazaka that she's always been Narus, whether she's engaged or not engaged in her father's house. So therefore, if the husband dissipates, he dies, so then it goes back to the father. If the husband dies, I'm sorry, the previous teaching was teaching you that what? The husband doesn't get rishos because because she's coming from her father's house, so therefore she always has to have the father participating, even after the engagement. If the father's not participating because he died, that's a problem. No one can be made for the nether. However, if the husband dies, the father does get rishos to made for exclusively, even though she was engaged. She was engaged. Minola, and where do we know this? I'm a rabbi, I'm a krav. Im hayo siel ish unidareha aleha. We brought this Gemara earlier. Rab is teaching a double lashon in the pasuk, right? She becomes engaged. It says hayoti, a double language. So ayin and is on the top. Makish kod me havaya shnia lekod me havaya rishon. The reason it says the language in double is to tell you that the way it was before she gets engaged the second time is exactly the way it was before she got engaged the first time. Ma kod me havaya rishon av mefer lechude. Right before she got engaged to her husband, the father had exclusive rights to made for the Dharam. So too, before the second engagement, meaning the husband dies, the arus dies, the fiance dies, so therefore she goes back to her father, and he also can be made for the Nedarim. So the Gemara persists. Ema hani mili b'Nedarim shalom niru la'arus. Maybe this drasha hayosiyali she's only talking about Nedarim, right? Shalom niru la'arus that the arus never heard about, right? She made the neder, her father heard about it, but the arus didn't hear about it. So therefore, that goes back exclusively to the father's rishus. Maybe he heard about it and he didn't mimikayim it or was mayfair. Lo matzi mayfair. Maybe she can't be mayfair. You need a shutfus. Lo matzi mayfair. The father can't do it by himself. So the Gemara answers even a darim shlo niro l'arus minurea beis avia nafka. Right from the pasuk we brought before that when she's in Narus, she's always coming from the father's house, so it's obvious that if she's engaged and the husband didn't hear about it, then the father maintains rishus because it really never was in the rishus of the husband because he never heard of the neder. So therefore, Hayosi Elisha is talking about even if it's near la'aros, even if he heard about it, it's still in this roken rishus la'ab. Right? We're going to say this talk about the seifa of the Mishnah that the husband is more powerful than the father in terms of bagras. She got engaged when she was a nara, and then in the middle of the engagement, she became a bogeres michti. Misa motzia, bagras motzia. Right? Death takes her out of the rishus of father. And bagras motzia, rishus av. And when she becomes bogeres, right, the father loses rishus over her. Ma misa lo nisrok no rishus labal. Just like, right, the father dies, the husband doesn't get exclusive rights. If she was going to Bulgaris in the middle of the Erison, the husband wouldn't get exclusive rights. It's the same thing as Misa. It must be talking about a normal case where they got engaged when she was 12 years old and 6 months, which is normal because most women don't get married under the age of 12 years and 6 months. 13 years old, 14 years old is kind of normal. They had a poll in Yeshiva World News I saw this morning. What is the ideal age for a boy to marry at? They gave you 6 choices: 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. It's kind of a short-sighted poll. I mean, only those are the ages. They didn't give you the option of 24, 27, 28, 30, 35. You know, make it a more, it has to be exactly in the box. Your world knows in the box. 18, 13% at 18, 6% at 19. The biggest number was 22. Second base was 23 and 21, I think were equal. So there you go. But girls get married younger. That's what boys get married at 22. But the girls getting married at 12. Really, we have to take a different evaluation of what Bulgaris really is. If the Gemara really means 12 years old and 6 months. Could be that it's alluding to something different. A lot of times the Gemara talks in metaphors, doesn't mean exactly literally. I would say Bulgaris is almost 18 years old, right? 12 years old and 6 months. Okay, 6 months is half a year. You know, basically half a year would be half of 12, so 6 plus years. I wouldn't say 6 months, I would say 6 years. Probably 18 would be Bulgaris, in my estimation. Otherwise, just impractically, girls are in the rishus of their father until they're 18 years old. I mean, they're getting their money. You're sending them to high school, and they're giving the money, the allowance to the girls. I think they're in the rishus of the father until Bagras at 18, but that's just my opinion. Obviously, it's not the accepted halacha. So she got engaged when she was a Bulgaris. Hatanina Chadazimna, fine. So why does the Mishnah here have to teach that? We learned it. We're going to learn it later on in the Mishnah and Daf Ayin Gimel. Bulgaris Shasa Yudbeis Chodesh. A Bulgaris that waits 12 months. We learned in Mesechus Ksuvos, right? If they get engaged and they set aside a marriage, a date for a marriage, so once they say they're ready, you have 12 months to get ready for the marriage. If you've never been married, if you're a psula, if you're a ba'ula, if you're an almana, you're already together with a man. So then you have 30 days to get yourself ready for the marriage. After that, right, then the Baal has to give mazonos to the woman. In certain ways, they're partially married. So extending this halacha in Nedarim, right, the Mishnah later on is the machlokas in the Rebbe Lezer and the Chachamim. After 12 months pass and they haven't got married, could the husband be made for Nedarim by himself? So we'll get that in a second. So first the Gemara interjects, how could the Mishnah say Bulgaris that waits 12 months? Bulgaris lamuli shnemasar chodesh, right? Bulgaris shloshim yom sagila. Bulgaris is like an almana. Right? A nara murasa, she gets 12 months, but a Bulgaris, like someone who's a veula, she only gets 30 days. So my answer is Tani Bulgaris vishashat yabes chodesh. Fixer on lashon the Mishnah, it's talking about a Bulgaris and someone that waits 30 days, and there's a machlokus there whether after those 30 days or after a year passes, who gets the rights to pay for the Nedarim. The Kamakam Kasha, you have a question. Why does the Mishnah over there says, right, that after a month, after a year, Lezer holds that the husband can make for the Nedarim by himself. So you see by Bulgaris, the husband has exclusive rights to make for the Nedarim. So like Maribai is saying, Hakadaf, really here is the main teaching, that a Bulgaris, the husband has exclusive rights. Bulgaris Kasani Hasam Mishum the Baya Flugi Lezer Rabbanan. There it's not clear, it's not a clear cut. The Gemara has machlokas, she's not really married after 12 months or after 30 days for Bulgaris. But let's the bottom of machlokas, can he be made from the Nedarim? If I say about Bulgaris to Afka, alternatively, you could say there, that's the main Mishnah. I did not say Reish, but that not Seifa Nami, but since our Mishnah was talking about, I wanted to state the first case in the Mishnah to tell you that the father is stronger than the husband in terms of Nisrok no Shus La'av, Lo Nisrok Shus La'abal. So therefore, to teach you, and the Mishnah continue to teach you one way, and that the husband is stronger than the father, right? A lot of Mishnayos have symmetry like that. This way, the father is stronger than the husband, and this way, the husband is stronger than the father. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where we talk about the beginning of Ayin and Aleph, and the bottom of Samach Teram and Beis. A little bit confusing, where the Gemara says, Kim lichi hayom, or he says, mufer lichi lamachar. How does that work? Right? 24 hours is the amount of time you have to be made for a neder. When you say, mufer lichi lamachar, the time has passed. I told you what the Rishonim say, what the Archkel says. I will give you my own explanation of that and comment on that. Ian Ben Sion coming up next.